It seems in many ways that the regime is applying the old tributary system, that they regard Communist China as the middle kingdom, middle between heaven and earth, and that other countries should be tributary powers paying tribute, allegiance to Beijing. And they see Australia, I would think, in this light. And I think that was demonstrated when the then Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, quite properly, I think, asked for an international inquiry as to the origins of COVID. We knew it came from Communist China, but it was proper to inquire into how it started and to make sure that if it were, for example, man-made, that it should not happen again. That was a very reasonable argument, but the reaction of Beijing was appalling. They shredded the free trade agreement, and they imposed all sorts of heavy trading obligations. Those things they didn't need. They didn't immediately need, like iron ore, they dispensed with by ridiculous tariffs and so on. And they decided that they would punish us for daring to make a reasonable proposal that there should be an international inquiry into the origins of COVID. I thought that was appalling. I wonder what you feel about that.
Yeah, I think it also opened the world's eyes to the nature of the Communist Party leadership. I think since China entered the WTO, there's been this hope that China can become the breadbasket of the world and provide for the world and become a major trading nation. And at that time, Western leaders were very keen to just put aside what they were already seeing at the time, which was that the regime behaves a certain way and has a certain approach. And for years, we kept that under wraps for about maybe 20 years. And I think COVID and the trade conversion campaign against Australia really opened it up and let the world see, wow, this is what the Chinese leadership is about. It's not just any government. It's there to use any tool it can when it needs to, if it feels like it's being offended or affronted.
This means, does it not, that they have a very low regard to treaty obligations, that a treaty will be shredded if it suits the current regime, and they did that in relation to the free trade agreement, did they not?
Yeah, I think the way to look at it as well is the Chinese Communist Party does not place the same priority on treaties and contracts as Western governments do. And I think that is a learning curve the West has been going through. The Chinese leadership operates on a completely different axis to Western leaders. It sees treaties as merely a stepping stone to what they really want. And hence why over the last few years we've seen, especially around the South China Sea, you can see that they've blatantly just ignored the international court's ruling on the South China Sea. Communist Party leadership doesn't place the same sanctity around these agreements, and they merely see it as a speed bump to where they really want to get to. And I think that the term they use is called lawfare. Communist Party will use treaties in their lawfare campaign. Essentially, the idea of lawfare is how do you manipulate a legal system to your own advantage. You don't use the legal system and try to uphold it, which is the tradition in Western cultures. You merely look at it as a tool, and how can you manipulate it best for your own advantage.